Welcome to this new series of Windows on the World, bringing you cutting-edge news, empowering information and no conspiracy theories.
So convince the sceptical public about geoengineering.
OK, well basically the weather has been experimented with since 1928. There was a process for producing artificial fogs, a US patent. Like I say, 1928, so we're just under 90 years of weather modification experiments.
They've got a warrant to search for and remove you from your place of residence, and have they also arrested your wife? Is that right?
That's right, they did it.
In your opinion, do you think the jury was led?
It's not mine to say.
Very diplomatic. Tell the viewers a bit about what happened to you.
Well, they bribed 3 criminals to come in and give hearsay.
If a bomb went off in London and took 92 lives, yeah, would you want to be on the payroll of that?
Nasrin was evicted from her own property. This was due to a management company issuing charges which she disputed.
The lady called for assistance from the police and she's now been arrested, handcuffed, took out of her own home.
The student loans, the debt book has been sold. All of what we've talked about is coming your way.
Sergeant?
I don't actually necessarily going to a police station at this time.
It's very painful to watch because in that instance I realised something terrible is happening in this country.
It's all based on models and projections.
It's all over bar shouting.
In order to get me in prison, they probably broke, you know, a couple dozen laws.
Free Yolanda. Y'all planted drugs on Yolanda, and we're gonna get her released and get the crooked cops busted.
That gave all the officers time for their adrenaline to slow down so we wouldn't get shot.
We will be streaming from windowsontheworld.net at 9 p.m. GMT Thursdays and Sundays. You can keep up with us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course through the website. On tonight's show we have an exclusive with RMT spokesman Steve Headley on the biometric fingerprinting of London Underground staff. Also on the show tonight we will be discussing the Bosnian pyramid with studio guests, plus by webcam Dr. Sam Asmanagic, who discovered the pyramid in 2005. Plus of course much more. Welcome to Windows on the World. We have an exclusive today. We're with Steve Headley from the RMT Union, and the union are opposing the use of biometric ID on the underground for cleaners.
We're at Westminster today and we're here opposing biometric testing by London Underground and their contractor ISS. We've seen massive intimidation of staff. They've been threatened that they'll be locked out of work. Indeed, they've been stopped working, and people have been told that they'll have the British Transport Police remove them from a premises. People are really fearful. Their jobs, their livelihoods and now their liberty is being threatened by this malicious contractor ISS, and London Underground seem to be doing very, very little to actually intervene and stop this bullying and harassment. We've had a similar situation today in Morden Depot, in Edgware Depot, on the stations concerned, and we've also had it at Westminster and Charing Cross. So we're in a very, very bad situation now. The RMT are obviously standing by all the staff. We have drivers who are refusing to take their trains out because they've not been cleaned properly by the cleaners involved. And once again, we're not prepared to let this thin end of the wedge slip in where anybody is going to be biometrically tested. Thank you very much.
Steve, welcome to Windows on the World.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're always welcome on this show. We're trying to get the truth out there. Now, just tell us a bit about this company. It's called ISS, and they're introducing biometric readers for basically fingerprinting. Can you just tell us a bit how the biometric system works, first of all?
Well, basically, ISS are a multinational company. They make hundreds of millions of pounds a year by exploiting low-paid workers, mainly immigrants. I think about 90% of their staff are immigrants. And what they do is they brought in this, they're attempting to bring in booking on by biometric fingerprinting. It's not actually fingerprinting, it takes the veins under the skin, so it's actually more intrusive than fingerprinting in a way, and make people book on and book off by doing that.
For people who don't know exactly what biometric is, because we hear a lot about this these days, and could you just explain exactly how it works? Do you know how it works?
Yeah, well basically what it does is they have a scanner, and they bring people in first of all to get them documented. And this scanner takes, basically it's more or less like an X-ray of the veins under the finger. So it's not actually a fingerprint, it's the veins under the finger. And they've got to put their finger on this machine, they scan in, they clock on for work, and they clock out, and also to for any breaks that they take.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that there's a certain pub chain who are actually fingerprinting their staff, and I don't know whether it's this biometric thing, but I presume it is. We've got one of these readers here, and you just obviously put your thumb on there, or your finger, and it reads it. But we don't know what these corporations are doing with all this information, do we?
Well, that's exactly right. We've been trying for 18 months, having great difficulties getting an answer to that specific question. What do they do with it? Is it privileged? Can they sell it on? They've tried to say that they can't, but they've given us no logical explanation why a system that's been used for donkey's years on the London Underground, there's never really been a problem with it, has to be changed to a biometric system. We just don't understand it. No other staff book on like that.
No, it looks like it's the march to the cashless society and identification of everyone on the planet by their DNA, basically. This is just getting more and more intrusive into people's lives. I mean, they're getting people used to not having any privacy at all. So how did they roll this out? Is it on the back of terrorism? Is it on the back of basically they're trying to stop illegal immigration? What is it?
Well, their excuse is that it's just a more accurate system for them to save money. I mean, what they would say is if somebody clocked off 10 minutes early, then they would actually get docked 10 minutes pay. And they've already got this system up and running in the health service. But I don't really buy that argument, and I believe what you said is probably more got a ring of truth about it. I mean, this biometric stuff, it really is intrusive. I mean, why should somebody have to give away that level of their self just to go and do a job? It doesn't make sense. No other staff on a London Underground have ever had to do this, and they've not really come up with a logical explanation besides saving money. I don't see how they're going to save money, because I mean, if somebody's paid for 40 hours a week, they're paid for 40 hours a week.
We want to be treated like human beings with some dignity and respect, and it's about time these companies and these people, you can't even call them companies, these people see what we're doing and what we do for a living and respect us for what we do.
They're exploiting vulnerable workers massively. I mean, if they knew if they tried to bring this system in with drivers or guards or signallers or anyone else, people would just say that they weren't having it. But I think it is the thin end of the wedge. I think that if they can get it in with the lower paid staff and intimidate them into doing it, I think we're going to see it spread out right throughout the London Underground and much further afield.
Oh yes, that's definitely how it works, by increments. So yeah, they start it here, and then everyone will have to be using the same system, because they'll say, well, it's impractical for people not to use it. Yeah, we know the way it goes. But can you tell us what happened today? We did get an interview with you earlier on today, but just run us by what happened.
Well, I'm actually glad that your cameraman there was with us today, because the level of intimidation was actually quite startling. People were being brought into rooms on their own, being told that if they didn't comply and have themselves registered for this biometric testing, then they'd be sent home with no pay. This was going to be an indefinite thing. I know these people had been actually balloted for lawful industrial action. They'd won an overwhelming ballot against this process. The company were just basically saying, we don't care. we're going to go ahead, and if you don't comply, we're going to take the food off your table.
So they've actually fitted this system, have they?
They have, yeah. And one man, very brave chap down at Westminster today, refused to do it, and he was threatened with the British Transport Police.
What exactly happened?
Well, they told him they had to book on the gaddies, even though he wasn't doing it. They then told him to change and leave a station. We came and advised him that he didn't have to leave a station. He should stay there and finish his shift. He's tried to stay there and finish his shift, and his supervisor said that if he didn't leave, he would get the British Transport Police and have him arrested.
All because he wouldn't use this?
That's right. And, you know, it was quite startling. I've never seen that level, really, of intimidation before.
Police and private security are pretty indivisible now. So the British Transport Police are actually employed by the train companies, the railway companies. Right. They're not actually part of the Metropolitan Police. Mm-hmm. And this is a very interesting thing that you've brought up, because they're allowed to carry submachine guns and sidearms. But they're a private company.
Right, they've got their own private police force, and they use them against the staff. I mean, when these people are asked to come and investigate an assault on a customer or a member of staff, they're nowhere to be seen most of the time. But suddenly today, we're getting threatened with them because somebody has refused to book on using that machine.
It's really not in their jurisdiction to do that, is it? I mean, that's because they're there to keep the peace and for criminal activity. And going to work is not, as far as I know, a criminal activity, is it?
Well, that's it. I mean, we're in a bizarre position today where the union were trying to tell people to go to work, and the management were trying to tell them not to. Now, the RMT are criticised all the time for trying to tell people not to go to work, or carrying out legal ballots of our members when they don't want to go to work. And here we have ISS, at the behest of London Underground, trying to lock people out.
Well, what would you say to the public out there? Because I know you get a pretty bad time from the BBC and the other mainstream media. If there's anything you want to say on the show, what would you say to the public, and what would you say to your members?
Well, first of all, the mainstream media are an absolute disgrace. They're not worried about cleaners. They're not worried about the racism that's involved in this. They're not worried about people in lower grade jobs being intimidated massively. We've tried all them, and they weren't interested whatsoever. What I would say to the public is, if they get this in with people who are vulnerable workers, then they will spread it out, and you will be on this database sooner or later, and you will be booking on by biometric testing. And I don't think there's anybody out there, I don't think there's anyone at all who hasn't had 10 minutes or 15 minutes extra on a tea break, or 5 minutes on a lunch break. So people better watch out, because this is very, very intrusive. I think it's very sinister. The details could be sold on anywhere. And I think if we don't stop this now, you know, don't be surprised in a couple of years' time or even less that you're subject to exactly the same process.
Yes, this is actually getting faster and faster now, as far as I can see, the cashless society, and it's been implemented at all levels, and a lot of it is in the United Nations Agenda 21, which is coming through all local authorities. There's hundreds and hundreds of these smaller organisations now which are putting consensus-led groups into communities, and is all marching towards this. It really is about having no privacy whatsoever.
And we've bought this argument that somehow it enhances our security. It's nothing to do with security. I mean, the level of assaults haven't gone down, the level of theft hasn't gone down. What it's to do is to monitor and harass staff. It's just, it really is Big Brother. It's here now. I mean, we used to read about this in things like 1984, and, you know, people thought it was a bit far-fetched. But, you know, when you see things like this machine, and people having to, you know, been threatened by the police to book on with a machine like that, it's here.
I've been served for 2.5 years in the Armed Services in the Royal Air Force. Now, if the Armed Services can take me and trust me with all the details, and the Metropolitan Police can trust me to do what I did, then I'm damn sure a tin pot cleaning company can trust me. Because, you know, wanting my fingerprint, wanting my biometrics print, even at that, is an absolute damn disgrace. We should never, ever be having to use this type of machine. It's a total and utter disgrace.
That society that was predicted in 1984 is here.
It absolutely is, Steve. Well, thanks for coming in. And that's an exclusive for Windows on the World there with Steve Headley from the RMT Union. Stay with us. We'll see you after the break.
Psychiatric treatment is basically synonymous to psychopharmacology, so it's all about the drugs. Hardly anyone does talking therapy anymore, and it's really sad, and I hope it's going to change. Yeah, and I wanted people to know what it's like, because nobody really knows until they get involved. They also do actually quite a lot of things to ruin your life in general by telling your employer. A lot of the time this happens without anyone really wanting it. I think it's a system that's set up in such a way. My book's available on onerosbooks.com.
And songs are everything, really, in this music world. And so I was a songwriter from the start, and I still am. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Welcome to Windows on the World with me, Mark Windows. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Bosnian Pyramid. In fact, there's 5 pyramids altogether that were found in Bosnia in 2005 that were discovered by Sam Osmanagic, who's going to be joining us by webcam. I'm joined in the studio tonight by George and Paul Moss and Nigel Grace. They've also visited the Bosnian Pyramid and had some very interesting experiences there. Nigel Grace visited the pyramid and worked as a team volunteer. He's a businessman, life coach, and found visiting the Bosnian Pyramid a life-changing experience. Nigel joins us in the studio. Nigel, welcome to Windows on the World.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to be here.
So give us a bit of your background, Nigel.
Well, I've always been fascinated by ancient history. I've always loved it. You know, the legends of King Arthur, various archaeological sites around Britain. Now, I am a businessman. I've had various careers, but something happened that completely changed my life in 2011. I saw an interview by Sam Osmanagic, and he said that they've discovered pyramids in Bosnia. Now, we never heard of pyramids in Bosnia. We know there are pyramids in Egypt. There are pyramids in Mexico that we have been told are the resting places of pharaohs. And so the first thing that people around me said, well, there can't be pyramids in Bosnia because there were no pharaohs there. Anyway, undaunted, Mark, by that, I got a flight, flew out to Bosnia, and what I experienced there really has changed my understanding and attitude towards human civilization and the history and origins of civilization.
In April of 2005, I first came to little Bosnian town of Visoko. This project is bringing 7 elements that will forever change our view of ancient history. Number 1, these are the first pyramids in Europe. Number 2, they're the biggest on the planet. For example, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, 147 meters, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, over 220 meters. Number 3, the orientation of sides to cardinal points, especially north, is the most precise on the planet. The error from perfect cosmic north, in the case of Bosnian Pyramids of the Sun, 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and only 12 seconds. Number 4, below the surface, like you said, once we remove 1 meter of soil, we are finding rectangular blocks. We've analyzed them at 7 institutes for materials. They all told us that it was an ancient concrete, artificially made concrete, or as Professor Davidovich of France called them, geopolymer concrete, which is better quality than what we can make today in 21st century. The strength of our concrete, 10 to 60 megapascals, the strength of Bosnian pyramid concrete, 134 megapascals, meaning never in human history such good quality concrete was made like the one that covers the largest pyramid on the planet. The element number 5, when we analyzed the soil that covers the pyramid, according to the Bosnian State Institute of Pathology, it's between 12 and 15,000 years, meaning that the structure is much older. 2012, we did the radiocarbon dating of the piece of leaf discovered on the top of the concrete block, 24,800 years. And finally, last year, 2013, we found another piece of fossilized leaf between 2 concrete blocks, like in the sandwich, the age 29,200 years. So it means that we are in presence of the oldest pyramid structure on the planet. The element number 6, below the Pyramid Valley, is the most extensive underground tunnel network, and the element number 7, in those tunnels, we are discovering the largest ceramic blocks, 2 tons, 4, 8, even 25 tons, which are signs of very advanced technology. So with those 7 elements, we forever change our view of the ancient history.
I spoke to Sam Osmanagic in the last series, and you can clearly see this is a pyramid. It has underground chambers which seem to go on for a very long, up to 10 miles, I believe. Can you just tell us a bit about the site and what you found when you got there?
Well, you're right. I was a volunteer. I went out with very little experience, but as a volunteer, and there are hundreds of people from all over the world come every summer to join the volunteer camp. So I was one of those. The main thing that we were excavating was the surface of the pyramid of the Bosnian sun. And that's roughly at about a 40 to 45 degree angle. And what we found is ancient concrete covering the whole structure. Now we have to realize that these structures are absolutely huge, but the actual materials covering this pyramid, it's found, I have a little piece with me actually, it's concrete. It's actually ancient concrete that's been fused or melded together using local materials such as pebbles, rocks, clay. This similar samples like this have been sent off to various labs in Kiev, Poland, in Italy and in Germany. And in each time they've come back saying, where did you get this? They've found that this concrete is stronger than the strongest concrete that we make today, say in Germany. And also, it's much less water absorbent.
Yeah, yeah.
In other words, it lasts a long time. It was built. But what's fascinating is how old is it? Now, you can't measure the antiquity of this. It's unknown. But what we've been able to find quite recently, just last year, was some perfectly preserved leaves that had settled on the surface of this concrete. And then, you know, after thousands of years, obviously, you know, it builds up with the rain and the sediment. But once we've removed the sediment, we found these ancient perfectly preserved leaves, and they have been dated between 24 and 29,000 years old. So this means that this structure, this pyramid, has a minimum age of about 29,000 years.
You see, this is the problem that conventional historians have with this stuff, isn't it? Because they don't want to go and redo all their history. They don't want to rewrite it.
Right.
So it's much easier to keep saying, okay, 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, oldest recorded culture.
I think you have to understand these ancient structures not only archaeologically, but also in many different scientific disciplines. Physics, sound engineering. For example, we have found a constant beam of energy coming from the top, the summit of the pyramid. It's about 13 feet, 4.5 meters wide, and it has a constant signature of about 28 kilohertz, which is above the human hearing. But if we bring it down to the human hearing, it's a remarkable otherworldly sound.
So what you're saying is that you've recorded the sound, and you've brought that frequency down, a bit like they did with the rings of Saturn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is another thing we covered on the show. Yeah.
The remarkable thing about this beam, this sound, we can call it ultrasound, for example, that it's constant. It doesn't move, and it's been recorded by different scientific teams. In March of 2012, there was a team from the Milan University and Turin. And what they did was something very sophisticated, that they actually emitted a voltage from the top of the pyramid going down inside of about 1.9 volts. And they did this, they emitted this signal into the pyramid to awaken it. Although between you and me, I believe it's already awake.
Yeah, yeah.
However, what happened, they did this for about 55 hours, but immediately they started getting some feedback or a return of the energy 3 times the power that they originally put in. And they were also able to measure how deep the signal went. And they found the signal went actually about 1,800 kilometers down into the earth and then bounced back up again. And apparently it bounced back because there's a very huge iron or metal or gold, whatever, plate that it's bouncing back. So whoever built these pyramids knew exactly where to place it to enhance or amplify top of it. Therefore it's acting as an energy generator.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, we hear a lot about, is it a religious object? Was it for ceremony? Was it for burying pharaohs and the dead? No, I think the pyramids were created as energetic devices. Now it could be to bring greater fertility to the soil, to allow cultures, civilizations to grow around the pyramids, or it could be for connecting our planet to other planets.
"115 years ago, Nikola Tesla was the only man of his time who was working on free energy devices. Today, in 21st century, such efforts are present almost everywhere, on all continents, from Australia to Dubai, from India to Europe, North and South America. And the elites will not be able to stop these efforts. As long as you have only one guy working on free energy device, it is possible. But with dozens of them, it's becoming impossible. And with the free energy, we're going to get the first pillar of the free society. The second pillar of free society will be the free flow of knowledge. And based on those 2 pillars, we will have a society of free women and free men.
That's a very encouraging thought. Just getting back to the Bosnian pyramid, and indeed the Bosnian pyramids, because there are 5 altogether. Is that correct?
That is correct. In April of 2005, I first traveled to a little Bosnian town of Visoko, 29 kilometers northwest from the capital city of Sarajevo. I went there to see the local museum, but then I saw a huge hill towering the town with 4 sides, 4 triangular faces, the same slope from the bottom to the top, corners. I took compass, and compass showed me that the sides match cardinal points, east, west, north, south. And based on my experience, and I've been working on pyramids for the last 25 years. My PhD is in Mayan studies, and I've seen them from China to Bolivia, from Peru to Mauritius, from Mesoamerica to Canary Islands. Well, I knew that we do have an artificial structure instead of natural hill. In the last 9 years, since I started my non-profit foundation called Archaeological Park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, we have spent over 350,000 hours in archaeological digging, sample testing, lab analysis, radiocarbon dating, and we have concluded that we have at least 5 pyramids, which we named the Pyramids of the Sun, Moon, Dragon, Earth and Love, with a huge network of underground tunnels and chambers, and the whole valley we named the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. 3 biggest pyramids, Sun, Moon and Dragon, form perfect equilateral triangle. The distance between their tops is exactly 2,170 meters. If you have perfect triangle, you have element of sacred geometry. Sacred geometry equals movement of the energy. And 9 years after we started this project, it has become the most active archaeological site in the world. Usually, archaeological projects mean 1 archaeologist, 10 diggers, 15 days. In our case, tens of experts, 400 to 500 volunteers every year, 120 days work on pyramids, 360 days work in the underground tunnels. We changed the perception about the archaeology. It is not closed science, but we have opened this project for everyone.
Stay with us. We'll be talking more about the Bosnian pyramids after the break.
There's so much information out there. People have to look, they have to research, because if they don't believe me, research. Don't have to look at my articles, just research and find out what's really going on for yourselves, because it is out there.
Not too far from Mullumbimby, which is in the whole area of Byron Bay in Australia, have been some stones have been found that were arranged into circles with an avenue between them. The stones weren't huge, they're not like megalithic as such, but they're very interesting. Some of them are probably like this big, you know. So the fact that it's there is fascinating, because it's not known that the Aborigines did this kind of thing in Australia, and to find like a double stone circle, and they had a cross going through each of them with this avenue between them on this kind of crescent-shaped, kind of moon-shaped ridge, is an absolutely fascinating discovery, especially in that part of the world.
Welcome back to Windows on the World. George and Paul Moss run the website salametandfriends.org, which is dedicated to an intelligence known as Salamet. George is also a scientist, and both George and Paul have visited the Bosnian pyramids and join us now in the studio. George and Paul, welcome to Windows on the World.
I think I can say we are both delighted to be here and be in a position to share this information.
There's a quote I got from you which I really liked. It says, "First task of any physical mission by extraterrestrials to this planet is to build a pyramid." Can you expand on that?
Indeed, yes. Yes. Let's ask ourselves the question, why should anyone wish to build a pyramid shape? And why should it be orientated with two sides east-west? The answer is to produce energy. The Earth spins. The pyramid interacts with the ether, which incidentally mainstream science has denied the existence of through the 20th century.
The first thing that George and Paul Moss said on their website about pyramids was, the first thing visitors to this planet do is build a pyramid. Have you got any comments on that?
Well, according to my research, the oldest pyramids are at the same time the biggest and the most superior. That's the case in China, Egypt, Mexico, and Bosnia. So it tells me that the knowledge has been brought to us.
I find this very interesting about the alpha, beta, delta and theta waves as far as consciousness goes. So the people that have been there and the people in the studio today have reported feeling so rejuvenated around there. They tend to call anything ancient, any ancient megalithic structure, a temple. That these frequencies, 8 to 13 hertz, is very common, a very, very interesting frequency for the brain to be at.
That's the best frequency for our mind, we are completely relaxed. That's the best frequency for our imagination, for the memory process, for our creativity. And guess what? That's exactly the frequency that you are getting while in the Bosnian pyramid tunnels. I had so many people from Brazil and Peru, Australia, New Zealand, India, Pakistan, Norway, Germany, UK, telling me while they are relaxing around our huge ceramic blocks in the tunnels, they said, we feel like we are at home. And they are at their home. They are at their best energy fields possible. So the ancients knew the secret, how to keep our planet the best energy field.
People seem to be fitter in the pyramid energy.
We crawled for maybe half an hour through tiny little tunnels that gradually got until we hit a dead end. And George was right up there with us all.
The concentration of negative ions, and after a thunderstorm or by the ocean, rich in negative ions, very good for health. bloodstream, oxygenated blood.
Yeah.
So working in the tunnels, which have a regular temperature of 11 degrees Celsius, year in, year out. So it's very comfortable to work in there.
We're here with Polly Trope at the Escape Bar in Soho at her book launch. And your book is called Cured Meat. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, it's a collection of short stories which are actually also, as a collection, they make up a novel. And so it is actually a novel as well as a short story collection. And there's sort of three main stages of the story. One is mental hospital and mental health care for a person, and the next one is just drugs, street drugs, hard drugs, and the last one is prostitution, and they're all sort of outlined as a journey of one person going through these various stages of life, and the first, like the beginning and the end, you see the sort of slightly happier picture of the person, and yeah, that's what the book's about, really. But I've made it so that it seems like it's all my experience, because I think even the things that aren't quite my experience, I did think about them so much that they somehow became part of myself as well. So
can you tell us a bit about your background, because you're from Berlin, aren't you?
Yes, I'm from Berlin, and I came to London when I was 18, and then I stayed here and I moved to the States, to New York for a few years, and then I returned to London, and I sort of studied and worked. I studied literature, ancient Greek and Latin literature mostly. My background is fairly disturbed, but...
well, tell us about your disturbed background, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I mean, I certainly have been in the mental health systems quite a lot. So, although I think that the things I wrote about are an extreme version of what happened to me, I've certainly known a lot of the really strange things that happen to people who are brought into the psychiatric
How did you happen to go into the mental health care system?
This is when I moved to the United States. I just felt a little bit lonely, so I went to see a counselor, and they just sent me to mental hospital.
Why was that?
I think that it depended on the fact that I didn't have any friends or family in the place where I was, because I just moved to the United States, so they were freaking out a bit, thinking that they might have to pay for any damages if I ended up killing myself, which I was.
Were you suicidal at the time or something?
Not really. I probably was extremely low, and I think that maybe I gave the impression of being completely crazy, but actually not quite. I was never quite diagnosed, but I was prescribed a lot of medicines. So I don't know. It's odd. Once you enter this healthcare system, you can do whatever you like. Anything you do, it's going to seem crazy, and they sort of.
Yeah, they kind of invent mental illnesses now, don't they?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's been a recently there's been a new diagnostic book has come out. Well, last year I think it was. Yeah.
Handbook for mental health care. Yeah.
I think it went through a few turbulences in order to get out properly, and I'm not sure.
Illnesses created every year.
Yeah. So that seems to include things like internet addiction, and strangely arbitrary things. So yeah, I think there really needs to be a change. Rather than restoring someone's health, I think the psychiatry emphasis is just on making sure something is more or less manageable, and often that's not really what the patients would like to see happening, because the patients want to feel better. I was just put on a lot of medicines so that I wouldn't be feeling or thinking anything much. So
How long was that for?
About 3 years. In the end, they diagnosed with schizoaffective, but the diagnosis part was always the most wobbly of the whole thing.
Yeah. So schizoaffective, what does that mean?
It's a mixture between schizophrenia and bipolar. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's okay for people to be having mood swings or to be a little.
It's perfectly normal.
Yeah. I think that there's some people are just going a bit too far when they think there's some disease involved. With someone might just be very upset or very happy. I don't think it's a disease. So yeah. So now, and I think that bipolar is something that you can say about almost anyone because
exactly.
Yeah, yes. It's not really. And I think the same with schizophrenia. I mean, nobody really knows what schizophrenia is. It's very hard to measure. It's almost impossible to know the difference between someone having an imagination and someone being insane, because anything that's not 100% matter of fact.
What sort of drugs did they put you on? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean olanzapine and Abilify, lithium and temazepam and zopiclone and propranolol. I had all kinds of problems, like health issues, as a result of that. But yeah, nobody quite knows what goes with what and what doesn't. So
if you could sum up the mental health system and the industry of psychiatry, in your experience, what would you say?
Well, I think for the United States, definitely, there's a lot of people that think they're helping and they're not. There's a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of pretending, and yeah. So I think it's quite a lot of misguidedness going on.
Well, it's an industry basically. It's about putting people on drugs, because if they can't get people on the drugs, then they can't make any money.
No.
Simple as that.
Yeah, at the moment it seems that psychiatric treatment is basically synonymous to psychopharmacology. So it's all about the drugs. Hardly anyone does talking therapy anymore, and it's really sad, and I hope it's going to change. Yeah, and I wanted people to know what it's like, because nobody really knows until they get involved. They also do actually quite a lot of things to ruin your life in general by telling your employer. A lot of the time this happens without anyone really wanting it. I think it's a system that's set up in such a way.
It's wrong.
Yes,
there's always this.
Okay, you know, in case you don't like to ask them, reading from
That's what I have on my bathroom door.
Tony Miller, there's Guy Fletcher, there's John Carter here at the back, Mitch Murray down at the front, Don Black here, Bill Martin, Harry Mason. By their own admission, they're great.
A message to the entire world, Mark: never go to Swindon.
One more time. These guys have written some of the best songs in the world that have travelled around the world, been fabulous for our economy and this street. We're going to honour it in a moment with a blue plaque, and Donovan has written a special song for it, which he's going to sing along to. For a lot of money.
You always love Donovan. We also wrote a load of shit, don't forget that. No, I'm thinking of you.
You said we bought it.
Yeah, we didn't know. We've only just come out of our coffins.
Thank you very much. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here. It's a magical street. If ever a street deserved a blue plaque, it's this one. My life changed in this street. This is where I met John Barry for the first time and Matt Monroe. But to give you some idea of what it was like, the people here, the songs that were created here, songs like Red Sails in the Sunset and amazing songs, Lambeth Walk, Tolchard Evans, a man who wrote Lady of Spain.
And songs are everything, really, in this music world. And so I was a songwriter from the start, and I still am. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
And Don has written a rather special song just for the occasion. I think you probably have to step out a little to ensure the feedback.
Will.
Yeah, okay. Donna's written a song. He's going to sing along, and I'm sure you'll soon pick it up.
In a dusty basement, down a dingy stair, the raggle-taggle gypsy boy with dark and curly hair sang his songs of freedom, rising in the air. Out of Tin Pan Alley to millions everywhere. Tin Pan Alley, Denmark Street. Tin Pan Alley, where the words and the music meet.
The Tin Pan Alley goes back a long time, the beginning of songwriting. For our international viewers, could you actually explain what Tin Pan Alley is all about?
Well, it was the only street, let's say, maybe 100 years ago even. Yeah, it could be that, where music, songwriting could be published. And in those days, before radio, before TV, before films, the way to get a song was printed on a piece of paper. And then the way to buy it was people walked around the country with the sheet music, and people bought it and took it home and played it on the piano. Or they'd go to the theatre or the music hall and hear it performed. So an organisation was begun called Performing Rights Society to try and catch a little money for the songwriter. And that began the music publishing world. So it's very important, the Tin Pan Alley, because that's where all the songwriters came. And I came in 1964, in late 64. I had no record deal, no television, no radio, no concerts, but I was a songwriter, and I was discovered by another songwriter and brought to the centre of the music business. So really it's the centre of the music business, because without a song or without a piece of music, there is no artist, there is no success, there is no movie with music, there is no radio that plays music, because without the song it's nothing. So this is the centre of the music world.
I'd like to ask you about as well is the whole protest movement of songwriting, because we find ourselves now in constant wars. The wars have escalated.
Well, I was involved in singing the protest songs right away, because that's what we were doing then. People say, where's the protest singer today? Well, the whole point, and Woody Guthrie in America was the great hero of our singing protest. The point about singing protest songs is at one point the people should then protest. That's the whole point. And now the internet has so many different platforms to protest and to state your case. I think that's why there's not a need so much for protest singers. It's now passed to the people to make their own choices. And so that's what I did then, and now I'm more involved in spreading many, many different ways of approaching the future through my songs. But of course there is a global awareness, because people are seeing it's touching their own lives. They're realizing in the food they're eating that there are chemicals that they shouldn't be taking. But before 1964, nobody was speaking about it. That's what we did in the 60s. Not just the singer-songwriters, but the whole generation wanted to blow the whistle. And we did. And the way we did it was through music. And music can't be stopped.
That's a very good point. Could you just give us a few lines from Universal Soldier for our international viewers?
Written by Buffy St. Marie in America, Canadian-American Indian girl, but I made it famous.
Indeed.
And so, it was like, for the Universal Soldier, is what the song is all about. He's 5'2", he's 6'4", he fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 41 and he's only 17. There's been a soldier for 1,000 years. So this is talking about chess. The pawn in the game is the common foot soldier. And the soldier and Buffy St. Marie's songs now can have a say-so. He doesn't have to agree. He is not forced to do it. That's what the song's about.
Where the words and the music meet.
Fantastic. Donovan, who's just been inducted in the US Songwriters Hall of Fame and the US Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as have some of the other characters here. Do you want to stand in the light and we get the riders in behind you? We'd like to thank all the publishers who've come down today as well. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they're all here. They're all counting the money at the back. They're doing deals.
Give it to the BBC.
Shower them with brick dust.
One, coaching. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, yes. I hope you're all getting this. It's extremely boring.
Mike, it's a good job. The Queen wasn't unveiling it.
Well, it's 8 quid.
That's it for today's show. We'll see you on Sunday. Remember, we go out Thursdays, 9 p.m, and Sundays at 9 p.m. on windowsontheworld.net. Keep watching those, watching us, watching Windows on the World. See you soon.